Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, a book that is available in audio format. You can find on Audible and on Apple Books, so check it out. 65 NHL play-by-play broadcasters that I interviewed, including 12 Hall of Famers like Doc Emrick, Mike Lang, Bob Miller, Joe Bowen, and some household names that are not quite Foster Hewitt winners, but probably one day will be. Marvin Kenny Albert come to mind with that, Gary Thorne, and Bob Costas. Now, I don't think Bob Costas will ever really get the Foster Hewitt. I think he's more going to be, he's a baseball Hall of Fame broadcaster, but he does the cold opener, discusses his time with the Syracuse Blazers back in the early 70s. He's making $30 a game, discussing a game against Johnstown in which it was basically like the movie Slapshot. So right out the gates of this 12-hour book, you got some insanity, and there's plenty enough insanity to go around, and glory moments. Red Wings are represented by Ken Cal, Ken Daniels, and Paul Woods. The blood feud is very alight in both the Colorado and Detroit chapters. Not only that, but, mascots nearly dying, actually against the Red Wings, both Stormy the Pig for Carolina and S.J. Sharkey for San Jose. These are two mascots that kind of had death-defying experiences just in the pregame alone. You got players that almost die on the ice, like Richard Zednik for the Florida Panthers, getting his throat sliced open. Stories like that. Players going into the stands at Madison Square Garden in '79, Bruins and Rangers, almost the whole Bruins team took on the fans at Madison Square Garden. And you got fans falling into the penalty box against Ty Domi. If you don't remember that, that was back when Ty was in the penalty box and this Philadelphia Flyer fan was sitting there squirting over, or not squirting, he was the one getting squirted. And then he tumbled into the penalty box. And, well, Ty showed him that this is what I do to regular NHL players, and you're not one, so it's probably going to hurt you a lot more because you're not conditioned for it. Plenty of stories like that. 65 NHL play-by-play broadcasters, like I mentioned, 35 NHL teams past and present. If you look it up on Audible, I believe it's 99 cents at the most with your Audible membership. It might even be free right now with an Audible membership. So if you haven't signed up for Audible, do it and get this book in addition to it and check it out. This is something to tide you guys over. The Red Wings don't return to action. We are over the hump. It's been 12 days in the past now that we have had our hiatus, and now we've got 10 days left. So we are over the hump, but 10 days is still a long time. Use it to occupy some of that with these 12 hours of hockey insanity. So that's my plug for the Voices of Hockey. I'm coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena. Now, I already mentioned we're basically over the halfway point as far as this hiatus goes. In the meantime, though, all the men's hockey teams have played their 3 games, so we have the seeds set up moving forward and seeing who's going to be in the qualifiers and who doesn't have to be in the qualifiers and who can wait to see when action starts up in the quarterfinals on Wednesday. So seeds 1 through 4 are as follows. Canada is 1, USA is 2, Slovakia is 3, and Finland is 4. Canada basically has a tiebreaker against the US. They both went 3-0 in their 3 games, but Canada put up a 10 spot against France, so that really just broke that barrier wide open as far as the tiebreakers go. Seeds 5 through 12 are 5 is Switzerland, 6 is Germany, 7 is Sweden, 8 is Czechia, 9 is Denmark, 10 is Latvia, 11 is France, and 12 is Italy. The matchups for Tuesday, the qualifiers, are as follows. Germany, France, Switzerland, Italy, Czechia, Denmark, and Sweden, Latvia. Now, Wednesday, the quarterfinals, the 4 teams, this is who will basically match up. Canada will take on the winner of Czechia, Denmark. US will take on the winner of Sweden, Latvia. Slovakia will take on the winner of Germany, France. And Finland will take on the winner of Switzerland, Italy. I've got a little bit of mixed emotions as far as the Sweden-Latvia, not the Sweden-Latvia game, but because I'm basically assuming that Sweden's going to be able to take down Latvia pretty easily and have to face the U.S. on Wednesday. That means you got Larkin versus Raymond. Obviously, I want Raymond to do well, but I'm going to root for Team USA in the meantime and hope for them to keep moving on. Canada is just a beast. I mean, what can I say? The U.S., I feel my own 2 cents on the U.S., I've watched all 3 games. They have not been able to step on the throats of their opponents quick enough. They have been kind of hanging with them. They even trailed, I believe, at one point. Maybe not, but they were tied. But still, when you start getting in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and final, you're not going to be able to toy with your food. Don't play with your food, folks. Just take care of it and get it done with. And I feel like that's one of the things that the U.S. needs to improve on, especially if they're going to be taking on Sweden. They cannot be hanging with Sweden deep into the first period, basically waiting for the first goal to be scored, because you start getting in a 1 or 2 goal hole to these teams in this fiercer competition where it's one and you're out. You don't want to be in that kind of position. So I think that the one thing that U.S. really needs to improve on is how they start and maybe get to a more comfortable lead soon enough and be able to just force the other teams to make the plays. They're going to be gripping their sticks a little tighter. They're going to have their mind set in, and having that advantage over them will pay off a lot more than basically hanging with them and just being up 1-0, halfway into the second period or wherever it goes. That's my 2 cents on what needs to happen with the U.S. moving forward. Now, leaderboard, it's pretty much all Team Canada as far as the leaderboards. There's a representative of every single one of the categories except for saves, but we'll get to that in a second. Offensively for the skaters, Stützle from Germany has 4 goals. Celebrini has 4 goals. What a year Celebrini is having. I mean, not only is he just killing it as a young player in San Jose, scoring as much as he's doing and being up in the top 3 or 4 in the team or in the league in points, but here he is. He's got 4 goals. McKinnon doesn't have 4 goals. McDavid doesn't have 4 goals. McDavid, though, is the leader with 7 assists. He's leading all assists for all the players, and he's leading all players with 9 points. So there we go. There's 3 categories. Basically, a Canadian's representing as a leader or a co-leader in those 3. Shots, Sweden is Joel Eriksson Ek is with 10 shots on goal. Obviously, they aren't going in the way they are for Celebrini, though. Plus or minus, 2 players from Team Canada, Tays and Makar, and Finland's Ristolainen are all at a +8 leaders in that category. Now, going from skaters to goaltenders, Saros, Hellebuck, Giannoni, and Binnington all with 2 wins. So Binnington, there's another Canadian with 2 wins. Logan Thompson started the one game that that Jordan Binnington did not start, and with that start, he had a save percentage of .960, which leaves him as the leader for all the players. Saves, Hlavash from Slovakia has 85, and so does Clara from Italy. Clara's obviously a lot more goals past him than Hlavash. So that's like the only category that it's not a Canadian player that is leading or co-leading. So, and then Giannoni and Binnington are the only 2 with shutouts. So there we go. Canada is a beast, and it's just interesting to see the names that you don't expect to see being at the top of that board. You obviously expect to see McDavid. He and McKinnon are just putting the NHL on his side right now, and the fact that McKinnon isn't up there with points, but they're still putting up 10 goals just shows how deep the Team Canada is and how scary they are. Speaking of specific players for representing their actual NHL teams, our 3 representing players, this is how they fared so far after 3 games. Lucas Raymond, Team Sweden, at his 2-1 record, led them to the number 7 seed. He's got 1 goal and 4 assists, so that's 5 points. So he's basically the Red Wings leader as far as representing us over there in Milano. He's got a +1 on 13 shots. Now, Larkin, though he's on a 3-0 Team USA, he's only basically had 1 assist in these first 3 games. He's got a +1, a plus or minus of +1, and he's got 7 shots. Now, when's the last time you saw Dylan Larkin go 3 games and only have 7 shots? That's what's going on right now. Team USA is obviously getting a lot of scoring. Thompson is doing great. The Kachuk brothers are putting goals in and assisting each other and making things happen, and Brock Nelson also. So, also, Mo Seider, Team Germany, 1 and 2, but Mo's got an assist and had a +1 with 11 shots. This is what I will say about Mo, though. I was watching the game yesterday against Germany, and he is definitely Man, he's leading that team. I didn't see Draisaitl calling the shots, and from what I saw, Mo was pushing the back behind the net and like, okay, let's push this up the ice. And to see him in that role, obviously Germany, they're the 6th seed, so they haven't done too bad, despite being 1 and 2. They've put enough goals in, obviously, in their other showings to basically give them that 6th seed and not be like down there at 9 or 10. But Mo has been representing. But like I said, Raymond's got the more points, most points out of the 3 of those players. And we'll have to see if Sweden beats Latvia. Like I said, we'll have to see Larks versus Raymond, how they match up against each other. Hopefully it's a friendly affair. Obviously they depend on each other. They got 24 more regular season games to go with each other on the same bench and not against each other in the face-off circle. So we'll have to see what things transpire for our 2 players who are not on a bye. That's Sider and Raymond on Tuesday, and then once Larks gets back into action on Wednesday, see what he can do. As we wrap up the show, just basically doing our spotlight and spotlighting Marco Kasper. I'm spotlighting him mainly because he's kind of a proof in the pudding of what's going on with McClellan. He's changing the lines up now. Marco is on the top line. And so that's kind of an interesting scenario there. But he's feeding Raymond. Raymond's feeding him. So they've got a pretty decent dynamic. He's got 7 points in his last 11 games. Like I said, he's on he's on that top line with Larks and Raymond. So they're doing something there. I will say this, though, about the Red Wings, though. All this shakeup, I never really believe in that much, because I feel like you can't. It's kind of like a bad GM on a fantasy football team. Like they do 1 week and he's just like, okay, I got to cut this guy because he sucked, and then they get rid of him, and then like the very next week he's just lights out. I don't like shaking up the offensive lines too much, because I feel like they need to develop some kind of chemistry, and it may not be working or not, but it obviously is one thing that the Red Wings have been lacking the last few games. I don't know if they've just been running out of gas, looking to get across and get that break that they need. They've definitely shown resurgence when they've had more than 2 days off. So I think we may see a pretty strong showing from the Red Wings coming out. Hopefully they have enough gas over those 24 games to really, propel us into maybe a 3 seed, possibly in the Eastern Conference. I don't know. But offense is obviously something that's been kind of lacking the last few games, and we'll have to see in 10 days what's that going to look like, and are we making any moves? What is our game plan? And Marco being on the top line, it's paid off, but they obviously still haven't resolved the issue for other parts of the offense. We're still struggling. We still need to score goals. We still need to give Gibson a lot more support than we've been doing. He's been doing great, but he needs more support from us. This has been Red Wings Daily, folks. Tomorrow we'll do a little bit of preview for the qualifiers that are going to be taking place that day. And Wednesday we'll have a little bit more. We'll see who the matchups are going to be. Tomorrow's Tantrum Tuesday, so we'll find something where somebody had a little bit of a fit. I'm thinking more of Tom Wilson, just because I like to drag his name through the mud a little bit. He put Fiala on a stretcher the other day, and he's probably going to be suspended for that. Good riddance to you, Mr. Wilson. Not going to say anything complimentary to you on your role in Team Canada. We all thought that why the heck are you on that team? But hey, he's actually been pretty good for the Capitals. I just can't stand the guy. So put Fiala on the stretcher. Hopefully they do play the Kings again this year. I'll have to look at the schedule to see if that's going down again. If not, you're a marked man for next year, Mr. Wilson. I will tell you that much. You're pretty much a marked man anywhere you go, and deservedly so. But this has been Red Wings Daily. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, LGRW from the PNW.